Hello.
I called you.
Hey, go.
It's cool, bro. I've been getting charged on because your shit's gonna die, bro. And you know it, fam. But alright, cool. You man,
we just got me more on the ball. That's all.
you man said to me that you wanted to speak about gender-related stuff in it. So I thought about the first podcast that I shot, and one of the questions that my first guest asked me is, do you think you should raise your sons and daughters the same? And at the time, I was like, yes, and she was like, no. And then she brought up the regular example people brought up about if your son goes out at a certain time, he can go, but your daughter can't. And I've asked many people about this, and they've echoed the same thoughts. Oh yeah, you can't raise your children the same because, you know, boys and girls are different. So I thought about this for months, because you know this was back in January. And one of the things I thought about was when you say raising your children, you first of all have to ask yourself, what does it mean to raise your children? And I thought it means you have to instill values, you have to teach them lessons, you have to sort of give them things like right and wrong. That's what it means by raising children, amongst many other things, isn't it? And I thought when you say stuff like you're going to raise your sons different than you're going to raise your daughters, one example that I thought of is, take for instance, a value that, one of the values you need to teach children is, for instance, is the value of money in it. And I've asked my friends like, oh, how you feel about certain gender roles and responsibilities, and they say, like for instance, Andrew Tate said he would make his son work, but he would spoil his daughter in it. And many of my friends have echoed similar thoughts. And when I thought about that, I thought that's actually kind of stupid, because one of the things you're not going to teach your children when you do that is you're not going to teach them the value of money. You look at some people nowadays and maybe take pop culture media, it shows you like, you know, your girl wants a Birkin, she wants to go the Shard, etc., etc. Or if your partner can't afford to do this, leave them. And I think about those people, and I think they've not been taught the value of money, and they've been led to believe that maybe because men have to work and women don't. And that's why when I come back to this question about, you know, how would you raise your sons different from your daughters, I think when you fixate on the differences that there are between men and women and boys and girls, things like that, when you fixate on that and say, oh, you have to because, oh, men are stronger or women are fragile, etc., you're going to miss out on the important things you're meant to teach children, like, for instance, the value of money, like, for instance, the respect and all those things. You're not going to raise your children properly only by fixating on the difference. But what do you guys think about that? What do you think? What's your opinion?
Any thoughts?
I think you should raise them the same, but I think there's certain like things you need to like instill a bit more in a girl, a bit more in a boy, and stuff like that. But like I think the basic things you should teach everyone, like you know how you said about like the value of money, you shouldn't spoil your girl, because obviously you want to, like, I think a lot of boys love the idea of, oh, she's my little girl, like whatever. But like you said, it can manifest in the future where they don't quite understand the value of money. And I think it's like a life skill that everyone should work when they're younger, or should know, like, okay, this is what it takes to bring the money home. Like if you're just always getting what you ask for, it's like you just ask for it and it comes to you, and that's not how life actually works. But like things like I think that everyone thinks something everyone should be taught about, but they're not, is like periods and stuff, right? Like growing up, if you have a daughter, you tell the daughter, oh, this is what's happened to you, like blah blah blah, but it's hidden from the son, because it's like, oh, your sister's got some like stomach pain, like, oh, don't ask her to do this, but they don't explain why they have that stomach pain. And I feel like that is sort of things that you should teach both your kids, because one day that son is also going to have a girlfriend, he's going to have friends that are girls, he's going to have a girlfriend, he's going to have a wife, he's going to have daughters. And a lot of guys don't actually understand how periods work and how you should help a girl during that and stuff. And I feel like those things you need to teach both. It's not a gender role thing.
Yeah, I agree, especially when you talk about periods and stuff like that, because I grew up without any sisters, and I went to a boys' school. So when I eventually came to uni, and girls were talking about stomach pains, cramps and stuff like that, like I understood it from an academic perspective, having studied it in science in school, but I didn't really know how it affected like girls and women in that everyday life. And it just made me realize that like girls have to go through a lot more physical pain day to day than guys do, and then expecting men and women to perform at the same level, especially when it comes to physical roles and activities, is often not the best. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I think the first time, yeah, I think families don't necessarily talk about little things like, or quite big things like periods. You know, so the first time most guys probably kind of start talking about it is with their girlfriend, not with their families. And so they kind of learn a lot from their first girlfriend, something like that, and not their families. And so I know a lot of guys are, you know, quite that, you know, when they might see blood for the first time or something like that, or they might hear about it, and they're like, what's the thinking, like, what's going on? Like, do you know what I mean? They kind of freak out. They're kind of disgusted by it, because it's probably not talked about as much as it should be back in the family. But going back to your question at the beginning,
About raising.
about raising. Do you think, you know, men and, you know, guys and girls should be raised differently? I think they should be raised similarly at the beginning. Actually, they should be raised similarly anyway, but I do think there are certain things that aren't talked about as much. Like, I think money is quite a big focus on anyway in general. I think for boys and girls, but I don't think there's topics like families that aren't talked about within families. Like, people talk a lot about you know, making money and careers, but you never really hear about, you know, what you actually like want when it comes to the family in the future.
But like, in terms of, like, say, raising your son or raising your daughter, the reason I brought up that one is because when I spoke to one of my good friends, quite religious, they were saying, they were saying about, based on their idea of gender roles, say having a woman in the home, for instance, they're like, they're not going to raise their daughter on, you know, going to school, studying, working, getting a job, like, sort of like that kind of thing. They thought it wasn't significant for them, or wasn't important. Whereas had they had a son, or if they're now turned to their son, they're gonna, okay, you gotta work, you gotta go to uni, I expect you to do this, you have to do X, Y, Z, you have to get the money and that. The reason that really I focused on that as my first thought of why it's wrong to raise men and women different is because you're just going to end up in a situation where you have, if you're going to do that, a woman's not going to understand that money doesn't grow on trees, it doesn't come instantly. I was going to say, me and him had an argument, and I said, everyone in the household should work when they get to working age. Every wife should work, husband should work, children get old enough, they should work. Because they're going to see, you know, things like getting money ain't easy. So, you know, your husband or your wife's trying to pay for a mortgage, you're talking about 3 holidays a year, that's a bit stupid. So that's one example as to why I think you shouldn't raise boys and girls different. But if you think that you should raise them different, like, based on what kind of things would you say you should raise them differently with?
What would you say that the focuses are? The small focuses?
Just quickly on what you said as well, I don't think it's necessarily like, because if you spoil the girl a bit too much, she'll end up not understanding the value of money. I feel like you're hindering her growth as well, because you should, like, everyone should be able to stand on their own feet. Like, you know, you have the education and the capabilities to. You should raise your children to have a partner that treats you like a princess, you know. Either way, like, a guy should have a girlfriend who appreciates him and, you know, does little things that makes him feel loved. And a girl, you know, you should raise your daughter to not go with scum guys that don't, like, take you on dates, whatever. Like, those are things. But, like, they still need to know how to, like, earn money. They still need to have that education and stuff. Because if you don't, you're basically growing that girl up to be reliant on a guy, where it's like you're looking for a guy who earns a lot of money because you're not able to stand on your own feet and stuff like that. So that's actually your responsibility as a parent, to give both your kids that, like, background, to be like, yeah, you put them both into the same sort of extracurricular activities, the same, you're giving, like, what's the word, you're exposing them to the same things, and then as they grow up, they can decide if they do want to have a chill life and they want to stay at home, that's a choice, but it should be a choice that they're able to have. And if you don't really teach them that from a young age, they start to become reliant on a man.
And that's why I think similarly, that's why I understand there will be differences between men and women. But I think as a whole, you should raise sons and daughters the same, because you're raising a person who needs to have the values and the responsibilities and knowledge, so that when they become an adult, they have that. But do you think opposite?
I do think, I think very similar to what you're saying, but I also do think there is, like, the element of like, there's a time factor where, you know, women can't have kids after a certain age. So I do think you do need to mention that, you know, to your daughter when she gets to a certain age, because you do need to, like, you know, focus on your education, but, like, you need to also think about when you want to settle down as well. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not all about working, making money. It's not just all about that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree with that point, because there's probably a lot of cases of like women who've been very successful in their academic and corporate careers. They may have their doctorates, PhDs, CEOs, whatever, and by the time they hit 37, 38, 39, they realize like, I haven't found anyone to marry, but I still want to have kids, and then that's when it becomes very complicated. They need to go through stuff like IVF.
How old are they at that point?
I think it's
To anyone to get corporate success, you're talking late 30s.
Yeah, but in general, and then like I feel like some women may, not in all cases, like I feel like the attitudes to kids and raising a family today are very different to what they were probably in the 70s and 80s. But there's still kind of I think a generation of women who maybe feel like they could have had kids earlier had they known that it would get later in their kind of late 30s, early 40s.
Why do you think raising children has changed since, like you said, in the past? Like, why do you think you just said that raising children has changed? We've had to adapt to the modern climate, societal norms, stuff like that. But how do you think raising children have changed?
I think people have theorized that post-war the government needed people to work, so they funneled the suffragist movement to get the other half of the population into work. That's what people have theorized. And some people have said it's led them to believe that your only values in being a slave to the workforce, that kind of thing. And then that's also further down led people to believe that, I think people to lose the idea that, raising everyone the same. That's what people have theorized.
Yeah, going back to that same theory, I've heard something similar, and it might be some sort of conspiracy. I don't know whether it's true or not, but they say like the government could have had a vested interest in getting both men and women working and having less time for the kids, because the government could take double the tax revenue. And back in the societies, while it was more difficult for women to get some freedoms and stuff like that, at least one man's income, an average income, could buy a complete house, could buy everything. But then as men and women started working, people started earning a lot more money, people started buying more inflation, etc. Like basic economics. It just became much more difficult to even raise one child. Like it's probably hundreds of thousands or maybe even like millions nowadays.
Even
like,
they say two parents' income is not even enough to raise kids.
Raise a kid. Two parents on an average income in London, like they can barely afford groceries, let alone holidays and kids. Like,
but you see my post. I want to know in what other ways, like money, things like periods, what other raising family. What other ways do you think you should raise children differently?
Okay, you go.
No, I was going to say, like, how earlier, I think you said something about, like, if you have a girl, about going out late and stuff like that.
That's an example people constantly.
Yeah, that gets brought up every single time. And I feel like in that sense, it is different. But I think a lot of it is focused on, like, telling a girl, like, you shouldn't go out late at night by yourself. And that's happened to me. Like, I have a younger brother, and like he's younger than me, but like after a certain like it was a thing where if at night I just wanted to go to the shops to grab food, my mom would be like, take your brother with you. But if my brother were to go, she wouldn't say the same to me, But I feel like they never kind of focused on saying anything to my brother in the sense of like, when you're out at nighttime and you see a girl walking alone, don't approach her. Like, I feel like some guys have picked up on it. Like, for example, sometimes if I'm walking alone, like a guy will cross the street to go on the other side to make me feel a bit more safe,
No, they do that to make themselves feel safe, so that they don't get looked at like they're following you.
Yeah, but like, they realize, okay, this is how a girl might take it. I feel like some people have picked up on it, but I feel like you need to focus more on telling your kids that as well, because a lot of guys don't understand the problem in catcalling, right? Like, do you think catcalling is bad?
Yeah.
Catcalling is ridiculous. Like, have some.
But
decorum.
I'm not like, let's say like
have some decorum, like whistling and. Just, like,
man. Have you seen those snaps of man them like doing like monkey noises?
Yeah, okay, that's crazy, like things like that. But even simple, like let's say a girl's walking on the street and you kind of walk up to her and say, "Hi, can I get you a snap?" Like, do you think that's okay to do?
I think it depends on
how
you're
you do
raised
it.
Or what. Some people wouldn't do it, like say like religious people, like a Muslim wouldn't do that, or certain. It depends on.
Yeah.
But I say if a man wants to respectfully ask a girl out, I'm sure that there's nothing punishable about that.
Because I feel like that's where people's opinions differ a bit. Because, you know, some people are like, oh, girls want to be moved in a natural way. What's more natural than you see someone on the street and you're like, oh, she's pretty, let me go ask her snap. Yeah. But also on the other side, it's like, why, like, you know, like, why, like, I'm just walking and you've just come and, like, made me, like, you know, especially if it's darker and a guy approaches you, you never have good thoughts in your head. You're thinking, what the hell is this guy trying to do, you know? So,
you
like...
talk about telling your children things. I saw this video on YouTube a long time ago. It was about like little black children in America, and the video was made, and it was a compilation of a group of parents who were brought together, and they was recording the children with that, and they would explain to the parents about the whole police brutality thing, etc., etc., and they were showing videos of the parents telling their children, these like 5, 6, 7-year-old like small children, primary school kids. And they're telling them, if police come to you, do exactly as they're told, don't resist, don't argue, they'll shoot you, you'll get murdered. Like, the parents are telling their kids very violent things like, oh, you're black, anything that happens, you're going to get murdered by police, make sure you do exactly as they're told. And the criticism of that video was that people are saying the parents are raising the children to be afraid. Not that they should be afraid because something is going to happen, but they're saying they should be afraid of why something's going to happen, which is a sort of circular backwards logic. And what people were criticizing in their video was that instead they should just raise the children to not break the law, be respectful to, you know, whoever, be respectful to, hold on, be respectful to the officer, but don't feel like the minute you see an officer, it's going to be a death sentence because you're going to bring out panic. But that was a criticism of that video in that particular context. You bring up this about your parents not saying this to you or saying that to you and not saying this to your brother. My problem is this, and the problem that people had in the video is in reality, and the statistics even back this up, if you're talking about who is at risk for crime or harassment or being attacked at night, the statistics will actually show you that a man is more at risk of being attacked than a woman is. But either way, anyone can really be a victim of crime. So this idea that a woman can't go or a man can go or a man can fend off for himself, I'll tell you this, like, if someone pulls out a knife on me or they pull out a knife on you, both of us are getting killed regardless. So people are teaching their children this misconception, like they were teaching their kids in that video, to be afraid of police. You're teaching them to be afraid of police. I don't think you should warn women about, you know, how some men are bad and sexual harassment and creeps. Well, you shouldn't make women afraid of men, and you shouldn't even make men afraid of women. That's my problem with what you just said. And I'll still come back to saying, you still got to raise them the same, because there are dangers of being out at night. There's dangers of being out in the day. There's dangers of being out, but it's not too much gender focused. But what do you have to say about it?
I think, you know, you just said that, you know, more men are harmed at night and stuff like that. But I think that might have something to do with the fact that women won't go out as much as men at night anyway.
No,
I don't see a lot of women out late at night anyway. Actually, it's normally guys walking around by themselves because girls don't feel safe, right? So I think that might have something to do with, you know, the fact that...
It's possible. You get it.
You know what I'm saying? Because maybe they're not going out. Like, that's why they're not, you know, high on in the stats.
Okay, but I'd even suggest that from what I've heard, and it's not like I've not personally looked into it, but even if you adjust, like statisticians would have done this, even if you adjust for the relative rates of, you know, who's present at a crime scene, but they'll probably still tell you a man is more likely to be a victim of crime.
The thing is, the man will be a victim of a crime from another man.
Yeah.
Do you know how rare it is that it's a woman who's done something to that man?
A lot rarer,
It's like, again, this is not like actual statistics, but 99% will be it's a man doing it to a man.
Yeah.
But if something happens to a woman, again, 99% it will be a man. So I don't think you shouldn't tell women to be wary of men. I would not agree with that. Because the way I'll raise my daughter will be that way, because I feel like...
You'll tell her what specifically?
I'll tell her, if you're walking alone at nighttime, you should be wary. And these are skills that my mum never, like, actively told me this. She would just be like, don't go at night or take your brother or whatever. But if you talk to any woman, they will have certain things that they do when they're walking at night, and this is just something you just grow to do. Like for example,
I've heard, like, you have your car keys in your, just in case you need to punch somebody.
not even necessarily that. Like if I'm listening to music, my sound would be like low or not on at all.
Yeah, I've heard you've got one AirPod in one. I've heard all
or
of
like
the-
I'm looking at their shadows and stuff. But it's like you have to be like if you know that there is a high risk of someone coming at you, why would you not take the cautions to be careful? And you have to be, because a lot of men aren't nice. If they have the opportunity, they will take it. Like if you literally, I saw this like a couple of days ago. This girl, she was, I think, like sexually assaulted and killed by her brother, and he left her in the park, like her own brother or cousin or something. And he left her in the park, and another old man found her. He found her dead body, and instead of reporting it, they found his like semen on her body as well, like for days. No. This is what men do. Like you have to be careful, because
I understand this.
Yes.
It's messed up, innit? But
it's so fucked up. But this is what men are capable of. Like if they have the opportunity and they feel like they won't get caught, they will do it. He didn't think he would get caught because he thought she's dead. Nothing's gonna happen.
I'll be honest with you. I understand. Like I said, even with that first clip, it's not about gender. It's about race. And when those people brought those things up, I'm sure they had their reasons behind saying this, but it's backwards to make you've got to raise your children to be wary, but even women, you got to raise them to be wary of being attacked or being a victim of a crime. You still have to raise your men to be, because like I said, if I'm walking out at night and a man comes and attacks me, it doesn't really matter how much I can fight. He could have a knife, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm going to still most likely end up being a victim of a crime. Now, if it happens to you, again, you might be able to fight less than me, but it doesn't matter because we're both just going to be victims. So I understand what you're saying, and that example is obviously absolutely horrible, isn't it? But my point is, you still have to raise both boys. It's not different. It's still a threat. It's still a possibility that something can happen to you. Because you're alone, because you're isolated, whatever. So something can happen. But either you're a man or woman, I think it's irrelevant.
I think what you're missing from your point there is probably like the small, lower scale kind of harassment and stuff like that. Because like if a man's walking like next to a man and like a man kind of looks like they're gonna approach you or in that type of way. As a man, you can sort of tell from a distance that someone's kind of looking at you a certain way, based on demeanor. Like if
so, how do you? Yeah. So body language. So how did you learn that? How did you learn that? Did you? Because you said as a man. How did you learn that then?
You kind of learn just by seeing how certain people who are more likely to do those type of things, people more likely to get into fights, people more likely to get into altercations. Right. You see how they move, and if you see someone else moving in that way, you know to either cross the road, turn another way, or something like that. But I feel like with women, because men are like more likely to approach women in general, and some might not do it as like respectfully and stuff like that. They're more likely to do something minimal, like shout across the street.
Actually, do you know what? I'll give you man a point in it. I've heard and seen, because I've come across it myself, innit? You talk about men approaching women. I've come across myself that, you know, if a guy tries to ask about a woman or something like that, they can get quite aggressive if they don't.
Yeah.
I understand you, and I understand you. So, do you know, you're right.
Also, let me make a point. Okay, so let's say you said you'd raise your daughter and son the same way. Okay?
Relatively. Obviously, there's going to be some difference,
okay.
But
so in this the topic we're just talking about. Okay, so let's say your daughter comes up to you and she's like, "Oh, daddy, something happened today. Like I was walking down the street. I was walking, and I felt like a guy was walking behind me.
Right.
If that happens again, what should I do?" You would advise your daughter, walk away from the guy or walk across the road. Like you'd advise her to kind of get away or go to someone or something like that. Yeah. If your son comes up to you.
How old is this, by the way?
This is like, let's say 6, 7 years old. Like young kids. They're trying to learn from you.
Yeah.
Now, if a boy comes up to you, your son comes up to you and he's like, "Oh, dad, when I was walking home, a girl was walking behind me." Would you also advise your son?
What do you mean a girl?
Like I just felt like a girl, not a girl, like a woman. Let's say a woman.
Right.
But if she says, "Oh, I saw like a woman walking behind me," would you tell that guy to be cautious? You just be like, "Oh, like."
No.
You would approach it differently.
No. And that's where I'm gonna stop you now. That's why I'm going to stop you. That's where you're absolutely wrong about what you just said. And that's the problem. That's the problem, exactly what you just said. We have a lot of stories, and this is a problem with men and women in general. You hear stories about male teachers raping or having, however you want to put it, they're doing some sort of sexual act with one of the students, and the student is a girl. That's disgusting. You're a teacher, you're in a position of trust, you're doing that. It's a complete violation, you're a rapist, innit? And nobody would be looking at that thinking that anything good happened there. Now, in the kind of schools that I went to, I don't know about you, if a male student was to have some sort of affair with one of the female teachers, they might be amongst themselves, oh, look at you, you're hard, you just did this with you're the guy, whatever. But it's the same thing as rape.
No, I agree, it is.
So that question you just asked me is the same logical fallacy. If my young son, like a 6-7-year-old son, tells me a woman was following him around, what should I do? That woman's a weirdo regardless.
Okay, no, sorry, I think
So if
I used too young of an example.
If a young girl my young daughter tells me a man was following them, again, it's the same. You're a weirdo. Now, what you've brought up is the correct example that people have a different idea. They treat men and women differently, and you tend to have a lot of boys who are victims of female pedophilia, female rapists, and you have female rapists, and nobody's doing anything about it. Why? Because she's a woman, and they have it in their head that, you know, men are meant to be strong, or the woman can't really do anything, or she's not doing anything wrong. You just brought me an example of you being a hypocrite.
Yeah, I think they're equally wrong.
I agree with you. I think the point I was trying to make was,
I wouldn't approach it different, and no parent should approach it differently.
You're right. Obviously, if a young child is being followed by an older person, that's always a creepy thing to do. I'm thinking more, okay, let's say they're the same age, but they're both like, let's say, like 17 years old or 18 years old, like kind of grown. And if like a girl, like 60, like your 16, 17, 18-year-old daughter is being followed by another 16, 17, 18-year-old boy, you would tell her, get away from that boy. But if a guy felt like a girl was kind of walking behind him, you'd be like, oh, she probably likes you. Like, you would approach it differently.
Don't you think the advice would be?
I would take it like this. If my child feels threatened enough to tell me, at that point already, there's something wrong. Like, no matter whether it's a boy following a girl or a girl following a boy. Obviously, if it's a boy following a girl, males have more testosterone. They might be more prone to something violent happening. But I would treat it just as seriously in that sense. I wouldn't treat my daughter being followed more seriously than if my son was being followed, purely because if the child feels strongly enough to tell me, there's already something wrong, and I'm going to treat it just as seriously.
Yeah, but isn't there more risk for your daughter being followed by a guy?
That's
Isn't there
I
more?
think that's put it like this.
Like-
What you're asking is
Like-
no. What you're asking is, if I have a gun and I shoot you versus I have a knife and I stab you, what's more risk? What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Either way, you're gonna call 999, send to the ambulance. Like it's a silly question, bro.
No, but I feel like you know the argument we're trying to make, so you're making points to think it. But in reality, when it came down to it, you would approach it differently.
And what I'm saying, that is wrong. That what you're talking about is wrong. He was correct.
You're saying it's wrong, but wouldn't you do it?
If your child comes to you, it must have been that bad that your child came to you and say, this person followed me, what do I do? So that's not a...
No,
she must like
it's like a passing comment they make, like, oh, like, I think a girl likes me, she's been following me. That way you
No, but
That's
you
different.
saying...
Yeah,
No, it's not.
You saying, because this girl's following me, she likes me. That there is the fallacy. That's what's wrong.
Yeah,
there's so many cases of guys being called and stalked by their exes or previous girls who are not even romantically attached to them, and other girls in society in general, other girls or society in general look at that and be like, oh, she's just a bit clingy.
Like, why are you complaining?
Why are you complaining that this girl's
I agree
texting
with
and
that,
stuff?
yeah.
And like I think that is it's the same kind of argument, like excusing
Nasty
a
behavior
girl's
from a
lust.
woman,
Like
yeah.
a girl's lust should be penalized in the same way that a man's lust should, but a man's lust is, because of testosterone, more dangerous.
Okay, so then wouldn't your advice, be different, when you speak to your daughter?
No, the
Why
advice,
would
you-
the advice
you
is the
just
same.
said-
What's your
The
advice?
advice- the advice is the
Well,
same,
you
by
just
the way.
said guys have more testosterone, so they could be more dangerous. So wouldn't you advise your daughter differently?
How? What would you advise
How?
a son? What would you
Well,
advise a daughter?
Well, listen, if your son was being followed by a girl about the same age, isn't he less prone to getting hurt?
So what's your advice? What's your advice? What are you gonna say?
That's what I'm saying. I'd be honest. My advice would be different.
What would you say to the son?
What would the advice be?
I tell him might not be the same, but what would you say? What's your management? Go on, tell me.
What's my management? For my daughter, I tell her to cross the road, and I'd also tell her to if it's dark, I tell her to turn on her brightness so she can look around better without like a bright light being in her face.
What are you talking about?
Like if it's dark and she's being followed,
turn down your brightness.
You go on your phone and you swipe down the brightness, and then you can look around better at night.
Oh, what, like a flash or something?
No, she's on her phone. A lot of girls are on their phone when they're walking back home. They feel safer on their phone, but at the same time, if your brightness is really high, you can't see clearly through the dark. So turn down your brightness.
So much contrast. Like if you have a bright phone in front of you, the darkness becomes darker.
Just trying to increase his
Okay,
visual.
well, so you're giving her that advice.
Yeah, I'd give her that advice, and I'd also tell her to look around and make it look like you're acknowledging the area, because a lot of girls walk home with their head straight in one direction. They're not looking around, and I think that's when they're more prone to. I mean, I don't know, right?
So
but
you've told that to your daughter. What are you going to say to your son?
Yeah, to my son, I wouldn't.
Don't do anything. Just let her follow you.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I'd say that, but I wouldn't. I might give the same advice, but he's less prone to.
But you'd give
That's
the
what we
same
said.
advice,
Same
bro.
advice. He said
That's
what
what
we
I said.
said.
That's
Yeah,
what I
because
said to you, bro. If someone has
I
wouldn't need to. I wouldn't need to.
Is it relevant what they have? What you're gonna do is end up gonna be the same.
I'm
bro.
gonna tell them
No,
the same
it's-
thing, but I might be more. I might
I
feel
know
more
the point you
concerned.
guys are trying to
Understand.
make, but you can't sit here and say women are just like the threat that women have from men is the same threat that men have from women. You can never argue.
We're just
But
saying
our
the
point
advice
is
is the
because
same.
that is different.
Only the advice.
Advice might be the same, but it would be different if it came
I
down
accept.
to
I
it.
fully
that's
accept that
fine.
it's
Yeah,
different.
that's
I fully
fine.
accept that
That's
it's
fine.
different.
And by the way, this is
And I
where
would give the same advice.
Yeah.
That's it.
But either way, I can't say to my son, don't do anything because, okay, take for example.
I'm gonna tell my son to take action.
Yeah, no. Listen, in the news there was a story of a young boy, right? It's a little boy. I think he's from Manchester, innit? He's got his parents, he's got his grandparents, he's got his uncle, right? What they found out is this boy's eventually died. What they found out is the grandparents of the boy has repeatedly made referrals to the school, to police, that the boy is being abused by his parents. And the only other person, the grandparents, is the boy's uncle that loves him. But both of the parents, both husband and wife, were abusing the kid. They were beating the kid, slapping him, poisoning him, feeding him with salt water, all types of weird, disgusting type of behavior in it. And the grandparents acknowledged this, had no power to do anything. The police knew it, had no power to do anything. School knew it, had no power to do anything, right? What's now happened is they've tortured the kid to death, and they've now sentenced both of the parents. But they've given the mother less years than the husband, even though both of them were equally responsible for the torturing of that kid to death. Now, my question is to you, is when things like this are happening, people are having this stupid idea in their head that because she's a woman or she's
Probably less violent or was
that's
less
irrelevant.
No, they should get the
I'll
same
tell you,
treatment.
Get the same treatment because
Yeah.
whether or not the risk, you still need to tell your son, okay, because what I hear often is they're not going to walk straight home because they don't want their stalker to know where they live. I'll tell your son, go do whatever you need to do, take whatever precaution you need to make to make yourself feel safe, but protect yourself, etc. And I'll tell my daughter the same advice. I might feel more worried about my daughter, given granted testosterone, whatever, but you're gonna treat the situation the same because
just as
they're at
urgently.
risk.
I'm not gonna downplay it in the slightest just because it's a girl as a perpetrator.
Yeah.
Like I'm still gonna treat it with the same severity, but I'll just be more wary and more worried.
I get your point because I think
Yeah.
a lot of abuse to the boy is downplayed a lot,
Yes.
a lot, and a lot of the times it's hard for people to be able to see a boy as a victim in a lot of situations where you'll be like, a lot of guys will be taught to man up, even by their friends. Like if a guy went to a friend and said, oh, this happened to me, they'll be like, what pussy, or like man up, like get a grip, whatever. But if a girl went to her friends and said it, they would all be like, oh, we should tell someone. Like definitely in society, the way men are told to deal with certain situations or things that make them uncomfortable is different to women, and that is something that should be dealt with. That's a whole conversation of its own. But my point is, men are more of a threat to women than women are to men, and you might approach it the same, but you do have to keep that in mind.
No problem.
No,
And that's why
I fully agree.
That's why when you ask what advice I'd give them, more time would be very, very similar, right? But I wouldn't even have to give my son advice most of the time. So, like if he
why
was
not though?
because he's less prone. You just said it. He's less
True
prone
say,
to
true
Yeah, it would
actually
not
something
happen,
happening.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
and if something did happen, he's. It's like obviously if they have a gun and a knife, yeah. But more time we're in the UK, so we don't have. Not a lot of people have guns and knives.
I guess
and girls are
example,
carrying.
but
It's probably not as urgent. It's not as urgent for the guy. So that it wouldn't. So if you didn't tell the guy the advice, it would be less detrimental to the if you didn't tell the girl. Like I feel like girls are more likely to be approached late at night and stuff by men. So like it's probably more important that you tell the girl because she's probably more likely to encounter it. But what I'd say to the boy or say to the girl in a given situation would be the same.
Yeah,
Sometimes I tell my son to maybe if you feel uncomfortable, just I don't know, pretend to tie your shoe or something. Just wait for them to go past you or something. But I probably wouldn't tell my daughter that because if there is a guy following her, I'd probably want her to get home quicker. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but I wouldn't want to risk her.
I wouldn't. What I wouldn't do, I wouldn't assume that the guy had less physical strength than the woman. I would never assume that because
Why wouldn't
I feel,
you?
Because
Have you see the
because
woman,
you
bro?
can't because you can't
Why are you taking risks with your son?
yeah you can't take the risk like
As
maybe
a parent,
in,
you just have to. Don't be
I
like,
don't-
you're not going to approach your son talking about, oh well, she was a woman. Why didn't you do something? You got to take care of both your children.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We live in the UK. Okay, there are crazy women in other countries who might have guns. What are you going to say to your son then? Oh, well, she's a woman. You should have dodged the bullet. Like, what are we talking about? At the end of the day, I understand. You're absolutely right. The testosterone factor is going to
yeah
put a woman more at risk from a man than a man is from a woman. Nonetheless, I'm gonna raise my children the same in that way, that I'm going to be worried about their safety if somebody's following them. Full stop.
There's something which given the topic that we're speaking about I think it's really important that we address for anyone watching this if you're not aware well I'm going to make you aware now that like we've had a tragedy at this uni fairly recently where someone in my and Tony's ended up taking their life over I think I don't know the exact cause but we can only assume mental health but
Is that what you're on about?
yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
What was I gonna say? But we've known for years now that the biggest cause of like men's death between the ages of I don't know, it's 18 and 50 or that type of age range is suicide and has been for a while. And like I just want to ask you, look, why do you think that is? Why do you think it's not probably not going down at the fastest rate that it should be?
I mean, I know why there is a difference between what men, having a higher suicide rates because they're more likely to actually go through it and actually kill themselves. But I'm pretty sure what the attempted suicide rate for women might be higher, if not the same. But men actually die from doing it. Yeah,
I see.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
So you think the statistics might be a little bit misleading?
no, but I'm pretty sure they are different. I'm pretty sure when men go to commit suicide, they're more likely to actually kill themselves doing it.
I agree.
I
I
feel like
agree. The
it might
completion
be
rate
something
is
to
always
do
gonna
with
be
the
higher.
way they do it. I feel like men
Yeah.
they're more successful at dying when they try.
'Cause they
But
do
I
it
think
more
women
violent.
try to do something else and they might try and overdose, but they might throw up
I've
or they might
read
slip.
something like men will go for a more violent method.
Yeah,
like
yes, that's why they're more
hang
likely
yourself,
to.
jump off a bridge, shoot yourself. Whereas women might go for the more softer drug overdose or type of thing. But
it's still. But my point still being.
No, I get it.
The question he asked, I'm starting to think like the reason that happens is because men struggle more from mental health that will
They
cause
won't
them to
talk
commit
about
suicide.
it.
And I feel like even in your answer that you just gave now, you're just trying to avoid saying that a man can be a victim because you've got this idea that a man can't have a problem. Do you get what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but I don't understand the
response you
question.
gave is sort of like avoiding saying that a man can have issues.
Let me rephrase this question and make it more poignant, more to the point. What should we do about it? Like in terms of how can we make sure that no one at this university or any other university takes their lives due to mental health? Because when you think about, let me even shift the topic slightly here. I was talking about just male suicide rates in general, but speaking about unis, I think that the uni's suicide rate compared to like in the general population is even so much higher. And then when you have
Really?
yeah, because like uni is probably the biggest test on your mental health at your given point in age. Like the stresses that you've had between the ages of 18 and 2021 are very different from like in a lot of cases from what you've had before. But I just want to I want us to kind of think of like what's the best way to make sure this stuff doesn't happen, and like why it happens?
I don't know about what you just said, but I heard a story about there's a bridge where people commonly commit suicide, and most of them die.
Whereabouts?
I'll look it up or something, but I can't remember. It was on Good Morning Britain. I don't know if you're asking me where it is.
Do you want look
Nah, like just curious, like if
Don't worry
it
about
was
it.
like
Don't worry
Leicester
about it.
sides or like
One of
I don't know, London sides.
I
Just for
can't remember, but
context.
one of the, it was on Good Morning Britain. If we make a clip, I'll cut it in. But one person who tried to jump off this bridge, he said, in the moment that he jumped off the bridge, he immediately regretted, and they said, in reality, people that commit suicide or people that jump off that bridge specifically, before they hit the water, they suddenly start thinking like, yeah, I shouldn't have done this. Whatever issue I had, it wasn't that bad that I needed to do this. And I think, you asked why it happens. I think, I'm not an expert or anything, but I think one of the issues people have is when they commit suicide is they have a belief that their problem is like they're finished. They've got no way out. They've got no other choice. They've got to face this problem that's going to destroy them, or they commit suicide. And the person that jumped off the bridge, he said in that moment, before he hit the water or after he jumped off, and he was lucky to survive, he said that he regretted it and he thought, as bad as the problem was, it was not that bad that I needed to do this. So I think if you're asking why people do that, how you help people from doing it, I think in men especially, they need to know that there's no such thing as an unsolvable problem. There's nothing that you can't come back from, or wherever the situation is, there's always there was another story I even read about a man who committed suicide, and on his death note he must have wrote that, he made a video that he's only got £12 in his bank account. He can't feed his kids, or he can't help his kids, or that was the reason, because he felt inadequate and unable to raise his family. So I think even in that situation, as sad as it was, people often need to be shown that there's practical help for you, that there's support available for you, that you can get some sort of a, or to build your support network or things like that. That's what I think about.
I think this goes into actually how you grow up your kids, because I feel like girls are grown up to talk about their feelings. Like the mum will come up to them, oh, what happened? Why are you crying? Blah, blah, blah. Guys, if they're crying, you'll be like, oh, it's like, stop crying. Like, your men are grown up to kind of keep their feelings hidden or not really talk about their feelings and stuff like that, which means they're grown to be told, oh, you're going to be the next man of the family, or you're like, you're the provider.
Even as a man hearing that man of the house, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but like that is how a lot of guys are growing up. So they are growing up thinking they have to be the stronghold all the time. Like whatever's going on, you keep it to yourself, you figure it out yourself. But if a girl's going through it, they're told you should talk about their feelings and stuff. And I feel like you need to kind of tell your boy, like, it's actually okay to be not okay. Like, it's actually fine, because we're all humans. You have your up days, you have your down days, but I feel like a lot of guys don't give themselves the space to feel that way. And because a lot of boys grow up that way, the friend group they have around them aren't a group that will support you. If it's very rare that a guy can say, oh, I'm actually really going through it, and the guys take it seriously and they're like, oh, like, do you want to talk about it? What can I do for you? More so it's like, oh, do you want to go out? Like, let's get drunk and move on from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the approach that guys take to deal with mental health is very different, if they ever even come to talking about it. But a lot of the time that never even happens, because a lot of guys are told to just keep it together, do it yourself, blah, blah, blah. And it even happens to when they're so much older, because sometimes, like, when I go to the GP, like, I have male patients that come in, and a lot of them, they don't even realize they're struggling until they're talking, and they're like, we ask them, like, have you spoken to your family about it? No. Have you spoken to your parent? No one. They don't speak to anyone, but they've got it so hold up, and they're crying in the GP when they come to you, but that's because they haven't been able to speak to anyone else about it. And when you ask them why not, they're like, oh, but I'm the man of the family, I have to keep it together, like, I can't put this pressure on their wife and stuff. So I feel like you need to kind of teach your boys it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk to your friends, to talk to your family, whatever, about those things. Do you know what I mean?
You say that, but I think, and it's good, that's how it should be. We talk about how things are in reality and versus how they should be. And we say just because things are in reality, I don't care how things are in reality, that's how it should be. But in reality, what you do often happen is if a man speaks out about issues, or he voices some inadequacy, or he asks for some help, I think especially around someone that isn't his parents, like if he often, like say you take red pill for example, they'll tell you don't cry in front of your wife because in that moment that you're going to lose your wife, or if your wife doesn't want to hear you talking about you need help or crying about your problems, they want you to solve the problems, not fix them. That's actually adding to the problem. What people don't realize is in most situations, people expect men to be perfect and have everything put together. And if at any moment they're not, or they come on some kind of I need help energy, that's actually, the man doesn't ask for help because he knows the outcome is not going to be different. And that's the reality, even though it shouldn't be like that. That's actually the reality.
I don't actually agree with you. I feel like this is a narrative that men have built for themselves. No, genuinely, okay?
No.
Because I can literally get you. If we do like a consensus and ask girls, would you want your guy to come to you and actually be vulnerable, be emotional? I'm sure like the majority, 80-90% will be like yes. A lot of guys don't do that. If you ask a lot of guys,
I've spoken to women. Let me land before I let you talk. I've spoken to women who have said they broke up with their boyfriend and their partner, and they cited he wasn't a man, he didn't have money,
he cried too much.
I've heard women who
cried,
said
gave
this,
me
like,
the ick.
Yeah, they've said not even just that, but they'll say like, I didn't feel like he was a man, he wasn't masculine, or he asked me to pay for something one time. Even we've got a friend, and one of the reasons that he broke up with his girlfriend is because they went on a trip once and he paid like a few £1,000s. He just asked to split the bill one time. She wouldn't stop talking about that for like a few months. So you say it's a narrative men have built, but I've heard it from a lot of men in their experience. But go on, what did you want to say, bro?
I wanted to say, like, as controversial as this may sound, I don't really like believe what a lot of women say when it comes to like a man's emotions and what they perceive about a man's emotion, because a woman will say like, oh, I would like it if my man was vulnerable to me, he cried if he opened up to me and all of that. But then when you actually ask the guys, like how was your girl taking it, what she said about it and stuff like that, a lot of the guys themselves will cite exactly what you kind of said. She doesn't like it when, or she wouldn't like it if I did that, and when you ask about the causes for breakups and everything like that, it comes to that conclusion that when a man, like, it's just facts, like when a man is like overly emotional, like it just is probably less attractive in that sense, because a man is probably better at regulating his emotions, is probably just seen as more desirable, and then that's a harsh fact. And I feel like men have to accept that to an extent, but also not internalize it too much to the point where they don't voice anything at all. Because like, let's say, I don't know, I had a problem with my exams, I failed my exam. Like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go to my girl now and cry and be like, oh, I'm gonna fail everything, why did I even do this degree, I'm so worthless, and just kind of like beg sympathy in that way. Like, I think men need to realize that there's a difference between saying, I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed and I think I'm struggling a bit, let's try and work through this together, rather than just like,
but that's not asking for help,
emotional.
No, okay.
The thing is, what you...
I think I'm basically
I
saying
have something to say about this.
let me finish. There's the last thing I want to say is that there's a mature way for men to speak about their feelings, and then there's another one where I guess it just isn't the best.
Okay, I have something to say about
I get
this.
what you're saying, but what you've just said is a man can't voice himself or express his emotions, so he needs to put it in a way that will be palatable for his partner, because the woman won't like it. That's what you've said.
That is what you've said.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything to say about this? Because I have
No,
something
you
to
go,
say
you
about
go.
what you guys... No, like, do you have anything more to add about, like, guys can't... In girls, like, they don't like it, anything else?
Yeah, I do agree. I do think, like you said, if you ask like 100 women, like, do you want your guy to be more vulnerable? I do think, like 8 of them would say, yeah, I do want that.
10 of them will say
but
that.
then if you, most of them.
If you ask them indirectly, they will say.
Most of them will say, yeah.
Yeah,
I want
what
that.
they'll
say
say-
is
Let me
what
land,
they
let me
do.
finish.
100 out of 100 will say it, but what they do is different.
No.
That's what I'm gonna say. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you ask 100 women, I think 8 of them would be like, yeah, I want him to be more vulnerable. But then if you ask those 80 of them after a guy was vulnerable with them, did you enjoy it? Would you want that again? They'd be like, nah, I didn't really like it. Maybe I could put up with it, for a bit. but I wouldn't put up with it for a long term. Do you know what I'm saying? And do you know what I'm saying? Have you been in that situation before? Have you been with a guy that's been vulnerable and you enjoyed it? Or
Yeah, I have. When that's happened with me, I'm like, I appreciate this because you feel comfortable enough with me to be open and say, this is what I'm struggling with. And now this is what I was going to get into, right? You guys said a lot of like couples break up because like, oh, the guy was too emotional, whatever. Now, let's take 100 couples, the reason why they broke up. What do you think is going to be more of the reason? The guy was too emotional or lack of communication from a guy? Genuinely, like, what do you think is going to be the more reason why the couples broke up?
oh,
Is it lack of
First of all-
communication from the boy or the boy was too emotional? What do you think is going to
Lack
be?
of communication is both ways, so it's lack of communication.
No, but usually,
on both sides.
it can be both ways, but majority of the time, a problem that the girl has with the boy all the time, always, is the guy doesn't communicate. No, so why do you think is the major reason they would break up? The guy's too emotional or the lack of communication? It would be the lack of communication. None of you guys saying it because you know it would be the lack of communication.
Yeah, but I don't think we're talking about that exactly.
No, but I'll say why.
I'll answer your question
Conclusion,
as a factor of, because I don't think lack of communication is a reason people separate. I think that's a factor as to why people separate.
It's a major thing.
Being too emotional is not a factor. I think that's a reason people separate.
No, let
Whereas
me-
lack of communication might be a factor. So as
Might
a
be.
factor, lack of
But it's
communication
a
I think is
massive
more
factor.
frequent.
And it's because you know what happens when there's issues, okay? A couple's going through whatever issue they're going through. That guy won't talk to them, like the girl, right? Let's say let's say you said you failed the exam, right? There's two ways you could approach it. The guy could go to the girl and be like, oh, the exam didn't really go that well, like I'm a bit bummed out about it, like whatever. They talk about it, they watch a movie, like, you know, whatever. Or the guy doesn't say anything and he's just feeling a bit shit. He doesn't really reply to the girl. They're not really, when they meet up, she's like, oh, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, it's calm. But the girl, you can tell when there's a change in vibe. So now the girl's thinking, what's going on? And that's just going to escalate. And that's what happens. Guys just shut down, right? They don't communicate. But a girl, we're not stupid. We know when the vibe is off, but you're not telling us why the vibe is off. So now the girl's thinking, have I done something wrong? Does he not like me anymore? Is he put off? But whole time he'll be going through a shit by himself.
More time, there's so many problems that if you like spoke about every single one.
No, but more
it's just long.
time, he could have just, it's nothing to even do
Why
with
is
the
this long?
girl. No, but more time, it's nothing to even do with the girl. It would be something like, I'm just something that they could have talked about, and the girl would be like, okay, this is what it is. I know that I'm not the issue. We can move on with our lives. But that's how it starts, and it's because guys don't feel like, they don't tell them this is what's upsetting me. It can actually be as simple as that.
I think communication could be an issue. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
a
it's
major
definitely an
issue.
issue. Yeah, it sounds like it's been an issue as well. Like, but that aside, do you think that, like, you know, if a guy was very, very openly vulnerable anyway, like, I know we're talking a lot about that communication being a bigger factor why girls break up with guys, yeah, but like that's a huge factor. But that aside, don't you think a lot of girls would break up with their guys if they were crying too much?
I agree.
Do you know what I'm saying? As well, like,
let's say
it's
he
less
was
common.
like, oh,
It's
the
less common,
McDonald's is
but-
cold. He starts crying. Like, obviously.
No,
Listen.
we're talking about serious things as well.
No, obviously. Like,
Like the
you
movie,
have
he
to
cried
think,
because of the movie. Like, he
like,
cried
there's
because of the
a,
movie.
I think that's cute. If you get,
Do you?
I think so. No, there's obviously a spectrum, right? In boys and girls, there's a spectrum
I'd
of where you
probably-
like your man to be.
I've watched a movie and cried once. I watched a movie called Mercy. It was about in the Southern America. There was a lawyer who was defending certain people from some racist trials, etc., and one guy got executed. I shed a tear for that. And because I enjoy movies, I've probably watched hundreds of movies, and I'm not joking when I say that. I probably know every director, actor, etc. So I shed a tear in this movie because I thought it was powerful, it was impactful, I resonated with it, etc. And that was me watching it by myself. If I had a partner and they witnessed me tears coming out of my face over this movie, that could be very... I'm not going to say they'll leave me because of it or they'll divorce me, but that is very detrimental to me and our marriage, our relationship, them seeing me cry over this movie. It doesn't matter how impactful or powerful, how much it resonates with me watching that, me feeling in that position, you know, the success of the character. It doesn't matter. If they were to witness me in that position, if they witness you as a man being vulnerable, it's going to stick in their mind. And they'll look at you as less of a man.
Yeah, we can talk about
I would even tell you, because when I watched that, I shed a tear sincerely. And I've never done that for most other movies, but I shed a tear for that in that scene. If my wife was to see that that would be very detrimental for me.
I
A
don't
wife's
think
hard
so.
to say
Wife
girlfriend.
is different anyway.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
a
I
girlfriend.
think girlfriend.
When you love someone, that's different.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of guys, like when they speak to girls and stuff like that, the bad experiences will always stick and never go away, and the good experiences tend to get forgotten. So like when a guy has spoken to maybe one or two girls, on the third or fourth, like they're gonna remember the bad things from the previous girls and kind of have an avoidance mentality of speaking to the next one. Make sure that let me look out to make sure she doesn't do this, and just be like almost over compensating. But
Anyone could do that.
yeah, but like, basically, I'm just like the more bad experiences like anyone has on either for either gender, the more kind of spite there is going to be, and the more kind of projection. So like I think we have to kind of always be careful to not generalize and understand that like there was complete variety of men and complete variety of women, but it can't be discarded that the act of like a man crying in front of his, a woman in general is gonna make him look a bit weaker. Like,
Look, you
That's
asked,
just-
you asked,
It makes him look more vulnerable. But in a relationship, why would you get in a relationship with someone if you're not ready to be vulnerable with them? That is what you're setting yourself up for.
But isn't
he,
it?
listen, he asked a question at the start. Why do people commit suicide? How do we help them, etc., etc.? And one of the reasons cited was that people get in a situation and they can't ask for help, they can't express themselves, and you guys are basically saying, well, you should be able, but in reality, people aren't. Now, men can be in a relationship with their wife, boyfriend with their girlfriend, and they have someone there who they should be able to ask for help when they're down, but they don't, and they've committed suicide. That's fully documented. Like there are plenty of times you can point to a husband or a man who's got a wife he can talk to, but instead he committed suicide. Why didn't he talk to a wife? Do you think he could have actually talked to that person? Why didn't he go to his male friends? Do you think he could have went to them? They'd have been, man, no, why you being a puss? Or you pussy, you this, you that. In reality, that's what would actually happen. Why? Because people have this idea, or people feel that way about men expressing themselves. And you're basically saying, well, you should be able to have friends where you can, well, people don't. You should be able to have a partner where people don't.
My point isn't that. My point is, I feel like a lot of guys, a lot of it is in your own head as well, is what I'm trying to say. Like, you guys are all saying this, that's what I'm trying to say is, I'm sure, like you said, there's a spectrum of people. Like, you've got your, some people wouldn't want someone too emotional, but also girls aren't like nonchalant guys either. You have to somewhere be in the middle, like whatever, like. But my point is, a lot of the times, guys, like, I just lost my train of thought. But what was I saying?
You said it was in people's heads.
Yeah, like a lot of the times, guys, it's a lot in their own head of, I shouldn't talk to my girlfriend. Not that the girlfriend wouldn't like it, but they feel like they shouldn't do it because they've heard stories from other guys, this is how it ended and stuff. But I think girls do like for you to be vulnerable. Girls do like it when you talk to them when something's wrong. Because they'd rather that than you shut down and not say anything, and that causes that relationship to deteriorate. That was my point.
I think the perfect kind of medium or balance is when a guy will say some stuff but not everything, because like sometimes as I said before, it's too long to say absolutely like a guy wants to be busy, like he has hobbies, he has like friends to chill with and stuff, and I think a lot of the time, like when a guy is like I want to chill with the guys for, I don't know, 4 hours, 6 hours. Like when we're chilling with our mates, time can just go for like 8-10 hours, and we don't even check our phones. We'll leave our phones in the kitchen or something like that. And then you come back and you see like 100 missed calls from a girl, and you're like, I was literally just chilling with the man. And I think guys use that time as kind of like therapy in a way. Like guys will call it Magnum therapy, stuff like that. When like guys will start engaging in a lot of deep kind of conversations and stuff. And like when I was a bit younger, I didn't really understand it. I thought that it was just kind of like a bit of fun, whatever. But then as you get older, you realize that I think the reason why guys spend a lot of alone time with other guys is because they trust that they're going to be listened to by them, and they trust and they know that they're not going to be judged. But when you're kind of saying all of that to a girl, there's something in the back of a guy's head. It's like, what if I go too far? What if I say like the wrong thing? What if this makes me like her? What if this makes her like me less? But with a guy, like, you're just fully comfortable, like.
So you're saying
you like.
you can't fully be honest with your girlfriend? Is that what you're saying? Like,
You can, but it's like you have to really kind of trust them and like trust that they're not going to, use it against you and stuff.
okay. So have you been in a situation then when the guy was fully vulnerable and you that was fine with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
have.
still with them right now?
No.
Okay,
You know what? Arsenal,
No.
that's a fallacy. innit? I think it's a little. I get where you're going. I've heard that
Can't
same
use that
thing.
example.
No, I get it's a fallacy, but you can't necessarily say
Oh,
that she
cheeky.
left.
No,
that
I
person.
hate how you're saying. It's probably communication, other stuff that you said. Other
Yeah.
factors, yeah.
Actually, that was the bigger issue.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, I hear
Watch
that.
me clip this whole thing in the right order.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I know. You lot said you wanted to speak about
No, I think we kind of went over it a few times when
why women wear makeup and gender roles and stuff like that.
I wanted to say something about the very first question, and
Which
we kind
was?
of talked about later on. Like later on, we talked about expectations. Expectation on guys being vulnerable, and expectations for what we talked about kind of women's expectations with men. They want men to be more vulnerable, stuff like that. But then at the beginning, we also talked about like how would you raise your children differently as well. But I think what kind of what overlaps both of those things is, I think, at the beginning, when it comes to men and women and you're raising kids, I think a lot of the time men are raised how to treat women, but not what to expect from them.
Okay.
Yeah. And but women on the other hand are kind of raised to like basically raised the opposite way. Raised
How to
to
expect
what
men.
raised around what to expect from men, but not how to treat men. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's, but obviously that was kind of a question around family, right? So a lot of the time you're not talking to your kids about relationships, but
Yeah.
but I think that's an overlapping thing that we've been talking about this whole time. I think there's an element of
Let
lack.
me ask you guys this question, because you just brought that up about families don't talk to their kids about a lot of stuff. Do you think people leave a lot of stuff to the school to teach their children as opposed to teaching them these things themselves?
I think I don't think it's by choice though. I think like you said, like
No, but do you think deliberately, like, parents will like duck talking about X, Y, Z? Obviously, you got some more controversial things that parents might want to touch on, but like, do you think parents will sort of just pretend or neglect certain things they should teach their children that they're gonna come across later in life, especially maybe around men and women in relationships, and they just leave it to the world to teach them?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not from a family where we kind of speak openly about a lot of things, but I know a lot of people. I've got a lot of friends that are from different cultural background, where in that family that they don't talk about certain things. They don't talk about sex. They don't talk about relationships. And so you don't really have the open communication earlier on.
Yeah, that was my family. Like, when I learned about sex from school, like in year 6, when like the teacher sat you down, that was like when I heard about it. Or just from other people. Even like I like found out what a period was when I got it, because my mom was like, "Oh, this is what it is." Before that, I didn't know. Like I can't, you know what I mean? I just didn't know this would happen to me,
So
and
this
what
is
the hell was going
this
on.
is maybe a personal question, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Okay.
You're a woman, innit? When that first happens to you as a child, what do you think is what did you recall was going on in your head?
I was just confused first, because I just didn't really know what happened. And I think I came home and I told my like mum, and she was like, "Oh, okay, so it's happened." And I was like, "What does that even mean?" And then she was like, "Oh, like you're like a grown adult, like you've grown." Basically, she told me like I was grown now. I'm a grown adult, like whatever. And I was
what?
like,
I told
"What
you
do
you're
you
an
mean?"
adult and you're like 10, 11.
Not grown adult, but she basically meant I'm matured now. Like, and obviously, you have to bear in mind I grew up in an Asian background, so
You
they
believe adulthood starts when the puberty and all that stuff?
I think
Not
in my
adult.
mom, in her head, she was okay. She's actually like maturing now. She's growing into a woman, basically, is what she told me. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Because this was just a normal day, and now you're telling me like I've grown into a woman. And but the thing is, when they had this conversation, they did sit my brother down too. So it was all four of us. Yeah. So it was my mom, my dad, me, and my brother.
That's really good.
But I don't think my brother really knew what was going on because I didn't know what was going on. So how would he know? And I remember
How old was your brother at the time?
So he's 3 years younger than me. So if I think this was the summer going into year 6. How old are you around?
That's
Yeah,
11,
3
right.
wouldn't have known what.
Yeah,
Maybe
like
10,
exactly.
year
3, I
8
don't know
or
what's
10.
going on.
Yeah, like he was just. I think he was
Like
just there
7 or
because
8.
my parents told him
yeah,
to be
yeah.
there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I
like,
think that's a good idea though.
yeah, but they
Yeah,
just
at
sat
least
him.
he
It
gets,
was.
Some sort of
Yeah,
understanding.
and I think he was confused as well. And then they were just saying all these things like, oh, like now you have to like, just like, oh, you need to start taking care of yourself more and stuff like that. And I got really scared and I started crying because I was like, what does this even mean? Like. You're changing because they made it seem like such a big thing. So I got really scared. I thought like my life was gonna change, but it didn't. I just like moved on with it. But yeah, that's how I.
So actually, that leads me into this thing you just,
But,
you just made me. Oh, go on.
Sorry, quickly. But my brother was there when they had this conversation, but I don't think they ever actually told him what was really going on. So I think I was who told my brother a bit more about what's going on and stuff about it as well.
Was this at a later time?
Later time, yeah, when he could understand it a bit more. But my parents didn't actually really. We're not an open family. They didn't tell me about sex. They didn't really tell me about period until it happened. And they were like, and they didn't explain why it happened. They just said, "Yeah, you're a woman now." And I was
So
like,
when you tell your brother, how does that come about? Do you sit him down one day? Does he ask? Why did you tell him that?
I think I can't quite remember how this happened, but me and my brother were very open about things. Like, and I will say I think that was more from his end than me, because he would just ask me questions, and I would just answer them. And I think that's kind of probably how it happened. Like he would just be like, "Oh, like," because I probably thought I'm getting cramps, like I'm on my period, and you probably asked like, "What does that mean?" And I told him, and obviously he's learned about it in school as well. But I've told him like, when I'm on my period, like you should get me a hot water bottle because I have cramps. And
You should give you. Okay.
yeah, but he should, because I'm in pain. Like if someone's in pain, you want to do something to help. So that's the little things you do to help,
So then, because you now said this about you telling your brother and your family sitting him down as well to tell you, I'm from a family of 3 boys in my immediate, so it's just the 3 of us men. I don't know about you guys, but
You the oldest, youngest. Wait,
I'm the middle child, innit? What about you two? I mean, I know
I'm
you
the
better.
younger.
I'm the oldest child. I've got a brother and a sister.
So, because you got a mix, I just got men, you got a mix, and you just men.
Yeah.
In a situation like where you got only 3, not necessarily 3 because of me, but you only have all daughters or you only have all sons, how would you educate them about the other gender? Because you don't have that in the family.
There'd have to be a bigger focus, wouldn't there? If you had 3 sons, I think you'd need your dad and your mum, but especially more your dad in this now, because you need to kind of tell them quite a lot that they wouldn't know. Because I mean, if you've got 3 sons, nobody's going to talk to each other, and also all their friends are going to be guys as well growing up, so they're only going to know life through a male's lens. They're not going to know how to treat women, really, especially. Well, I guess how to treat women a little bit, but not also. But there's a lot they're lacking, right? If you're just 3 sons and there's no sister, there's only just a mum. So I think there's a lot that dad has to do just to get through to them, just to actually tell them information that they wouldn't actually know, because I'm a sister. They wouldn't sat down when they were younger about periods. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When they should be, even if they don't have a sister.
Yeah.
What about if you had 3 girls in the family? What would one need to do to teach them about men, raising them?
I think if you got 3 girls, like in this,
Or
in this
just girls, just not necessarily
Yeah,
3 in the book, just girls.
I think you'd have to tell them this stuff that they probably wouldn't hear, because I think these 3 girls they'd all kind of think very similar as well, and you'd have to tell them stuff. You'd have to what would you have to do? I mean,
I've not actually thought about this, because I think about teaching guys stuff that they wouldn't know unless they had a girl in the family. But what would you want to teach?
I mean,
girls,
I think
boys?
I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think I'd kind of treat them well. I think they would see a lot of stuff in the current climate. I think they see a lot of stuff on TikTok, and a lot of the girls would all think very similar to each other, and and I'm guessing that all the girls would be very career driven as well, because that's what everyone pushes for it as well. But it's I'd probably be like, I kind of mentioned what I said earlier, which is just it's not just about careers as well. It's also about family. And I don't think if you had 3 girls, I don't think you'd even mention that. I don't think
what?
you mention kids, mention
Okay.
building a family. Do you know what I'm saying?
What, in regards to teaching them or raising them on, or letting them know about men.
Yeah, and it'll just even letting them know about, you know, how men think and how men move. You know, because as girls, you wouldn't even know that. And you know, do you know what I'm saying? If you got three girls, what would they?
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. I only grew up with just boys, so we've never been sat down on anything about women.
Yeah.
By
same.
mum or dad.
Yeah.
So
Maybe it's an African.
that's maybe innit?
Yeah.
But that's you just told me that's the strangest thing I've ever heard in my life. That daughter has a period. Now you're gonna bring the son and sit him down too. I've never heard that before. But that's interesting, innit? So now I'm just wondering, like, if you only have one gender of all your children, and you want to teach them about the opposite sex, what would you teach them? That's something I've never. So I just wanted to know what you guys thought.
Maybe if I only had children of like one gender, I'd make sure that they at least like encountered the other gender at like a younger age. Like there's a lot of kids who go to like single set schools, like from primary all the way up to secondary. How are you gonna expect a guy who's gone from private primary school to secondary school, all being just boys up to age 18, to like interact in a socially accordant manner with females, like especially if he goes boarding school and everything. And then one thing I've realized as well, when you have like a lot of boys at a certain age, maybe like kind of 12 to 15, 16, you don't really understand when you're like that age, you don't really understand what you're saying too much. Like you can be saying like the maddest like stuff. Like everyone has all guys have a joke like, oh, if the Magnum group chat gets leaked, like
I'll be honest, actually, yeah.
Like,
there was been a lot of that in schools.
but there is kind of like a bit of truth in that, because they're like, in like male dominated like echo chambers, without the presence of women there to kind of give their point of view and counter arguments. A lot of guys will have like very entrenched views about women, and on the other side, if women are segregated in the other sense, they're gonna have very entrenched views about men. And
so what's the view?
More, I feel like there needs to be more kind of gender interactions at a younger age.
Yeah.
Mixed gender.
So you went to all boys school, right?
Yeah.
So what's the view that you had about women that you grew up to and found that it's not true? Like maybe some advice you've heard, maybe some advice along the way that you've heard that you know that you heard women like, right? But then you got to uni, right? And then you finally seen lots of girls, and it's like, oh wait, they actually don't like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is there any advice like that?
For me, I didn't understand the complexity of women. I didn't understand like the emotional kind of depth women would be, and like I genuinely probably didn't understand like how manipulative women could be, like you know what I mean, like you actually no
Is it?
No,
well,
I know
at age like what 15, 16, around that age, you because you're not interacting with girls on that on a daily basis, you're not getting into situations where you're working with them, collaborating with them for something, or their friend dynamics, how like there is a lot of like toxic competition, toxic femininity between friends, like the competitive nature, and it's like, but I can't lie, all I knew at that age about girls is that they'd comment the maddest stuff on their friends' Instagram pictures. That's all I knew. Like you see a girl and it's like, oh, gorgeous, pretty, XX, and just bare stuff. And I see all that and I'm like, wow, like girls must be all like
good friends,
really good friends, happy people. Yeah. Like they can't really do wrong in that sense. Like you don't really kind of think of a negative, any negative connotations.
So then you got to uni and then you expected to see that from girls, but they didn't show you that kind of same energy you thought that they always give their friends.
No. I saw it in some girls, but you also see the complete opposite, and it shocks you, and you're like, wow, like is this how it can really be in a way?
So you thought they were just all nice, basically, is what you're saying, and then you thought
you have like a more romanticized view, and obviously it comes from the shows you watch and everything. It's like how love is presented, and like marriage is the best thing to happen, that you don't ever see, like they never show the arguments and the issues. And even in situations like that, like if a man is struggling or he's getting things wrong, like it's just seen like, oh, he's just a bit clumsy, he's just having a bad day, but like you don't actually understand. Like I can't lie, when I was a kid, I would hear men makes like love songs and like heartbreak songs and stuff. In my mind, I was like, why are you begging it? Like, why are you crying? Why are you making entire songs like about a woman, about a girl? I'm like you're just doing too much. That's what I used to think as a kid. Like it's not that deep.
So you experience, you don't understand love is
Yeah,
as powerful.
you don't understand the
So
the
now
depths
you
and
get it then.
complexities. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I think you mentioned something that spurred the question I was asking. Like, for example, and this is probably a point of contention amongst women, but stuff like, if say you only had women in your family and they didn't know anything about men, and you mentioned group chats, often like a male-only group chat can seem quite vulgar. Like, even in my school, there was a group chat once where it was like a football group chat, people that went to play football and they watch football. And
The sports ones are always the worst.
They'll say things like Arsenal, Sky Sports didn't show Arsenal's game against Man United where they lost 5-1 because they're not allowed to show rape on TV. Like, it'll be 4 or 5 hundreds of jokes. Like, it'll be like, I'll just make up a name, or Jason won't come back to school to show his face because he got raped last night in cages. Like, the whole group chat was just countless jokes like that.
I feel like
and then what ended up happening was somebody screenshotted the group chat and it's going around.
They got bagged.
All the boys are saying, oh, this guy got raped, Arsenal got raped, United got raped, there was rape on television, 8-1-0, 8-0 rape, like. And I think women, if you're a woman and you don't understand anything about men, and you come across this thing on the news, you might hear about locker room talk. You might think that, do men hate women, or why are they speaking like this? I think that is one thing that...
But why are they speaking like this?
It's just like, it's like dark humor, but it's sort of funny, like... Cause
but it's not, like...
It is funny, though.
It's not...
Because you laugh, everyone here laughed, you lot don't... It's not funny, it's funny and it's not funny. I understand why it's not funny, because rape, for example, that's just one example, but it's not something you make light of. But it's funny in the sense that it's outrageous in what they're saying. It's like if a comedian says something.
It's like
comedians say things that you don't want to hear. Like, you hear comedians making rape jokes. I'll try to think of one to give you an example, but the whole auditorium will laugh.
Let me give.
But it's not necessarily. It's not a funny topic.
Let me.
It's a funny thing. But what I'm saying is, women might not understand that. Men will say these things, and it's not because they feel this way.
Yeah.
It's just, that.
I think on that type of point. I think something else to add to that would be racism. Like, if you have like male friends of different races, like, you're gonna be hearing like the maddest obscenities like, being said about different races. Like, let's say I don't know, like I've a white friend, for example, and let's say like we're gonna like play some football, play some sports, or like running a race. Like, as a joke, someone will be like, that guy needs a 20-second head start. Or like, he might be like to me, after this, I know you're getting KFC, aren't you? Like, if someone saw that out of context, they might think, oh, that's really mean, like, guys hate each other. Yeah. But the way guys make jokes is so much more outrageous. And I don't think we deep it as much.
You're right. Either way, it's racist, it's sexist, it's, bottom line it is. But it's funny because I think what some women don't understand, some men, when they get in the spaces just amongst men, you've never been on PS4, PS5, like, people will be playing FIFA and people will be saying some things I can't repeat, like, you understand? So,
but,
I don't know.
As guys, we definitely understand that. We understand that, but I think what we don't understand is that, you know, we can't be saying that around women as well, because like, the women aren't in the PS4, you know, parties. You know what I'm saying? They're not used to that. So as soon as you start saying, you know, like the humor that guys have together, you guys need to I do think guys need to kind of step away from that, or just think about that. Think about who you're with right now. You're with a girl that's not heard this humor before. You know what I'm saying? She's not got older brothers that's heard this before. You don't know that, if she's used to it or not.
And that's why
obviously, as soon as they hear it,
that's one thing they might not know about men. But even you saying that, often these are examples of it getting exposed. It's not like, obviously, this was in the male group chat. This was in the PS4 party chat. Like, this was the man them in the locker room talking, but it's slipped. Somebody's leaked it or someone's recorded it and it slipped. And now people are seeing this and it looks outrageous because of what's being said. But that, like I said, it's a point of contention, locker room talk, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like another example could be like, two guys are walking, like, an attractive girl walks past, like one guy might do to the other one, "Rah, she's
No,
so
no, no,
bad."
no, that-
like
that's
that's,
out.
bad. Like, do you know what I mean?
That's wrong. That's wrong.
Like
That's wrong. That's
yeah,
wrong.
but it's something like that. A guy might think it. Like if a guy was on his one, this girl will pass. Like he sees an attractive girl, he might think it. But if his friend's there, he might say something to her. But no, not say something. Say something to his friend. But
Yeah.
if the guy has no awareness, like there's always that one guy in the friendship group who just has no awareness, like. That guy will just say it really loud, and then the guy will look behind, like this guy's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it relies on like guys to develop the awareness to keep intrusive thoughts intrusive, because like as I think it goes back to what you're saying about guys showing emotion and stuff like that. Like I feel like if a guy was being truly honest to his wife about like I don't know, let's say he went to the beach with his mates or something, and like the girl and his girl's like one of those kind of like maybe like a bit more insecure, a bit more pushy. She'll be like, did you find any girls attractive there? Like, don't. I know you found them pretty. I know you did. And this guy would just be like, no, I didn't. No, and you know he did, and he's not gonna say it because he knows. If he says, yeah, there was one girl, she was looking. That's an argument. That's 2 hours. Like we don't got time. Do you know what I mean? So in some cases, keeping intrusive thoughts intrusive is functional.
So would you say that those intrinsic thoughts though, if you're keeping it,
quickly, women also do. They also have their own group chats.
Yeah.
They also have their own thoughts about. You won't hear about it as much, but they also have a similar thing. But with men, it can just be a bit too rowdy.
Men are just like less. I feel like maybe a bit less spatially aware. Potentially.
But what do you think? What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that don't you think those intrinsic thoughts that you just said that we can't say, that you just said that men can't say, don't you think that's the part of the communication that like that what we're lacking in general?
Yeah, I think going on from that.
But that's what I'm saying. So if we communicate those intrinsic thoughts, right? That's what I'm saying. Could we communicate that? That's what I'm saying.
If women could read our minds, we're cooked.
Communicate or not communicate. That's not. If you're with a partner and you went to the beach or whatever, and they're asking you, did you find anyone attractive? First of all, you shouldn't have found anyone attractive, and if you did, you should never say. They might have looked pretty or something, right? But it shouldn't have been like you were attracted to them. So I think that's a bad example about how you're gonna deal with your partner. Do you understand that? That's not. It's not something you need to communicate or not communicate. It's like it's a stupid thing.
Yeah, it's a stupid question, obviously, for your girlfriend to ask that.
It's a stupid. It would be stupid of you to say yes, and you shouldn't have found that person. Do you get what I'm saying?
Nah.
No, wait, hold on.
Like
No.
you can be married
find people attractive.
attractive.
No, you can say that, but you shouldn't have been. You shouldn't be like you were attracted to.
No. I wasn't saying that. I was saying, let's say like every year, like, a lot of guys experience this, like, or like like when you're just with a girl, like it doesn't even have to be a girl. You're just with her, and I don't know, like you're scrolling through Insta, and like a picture of like an objectively attractive woman comes up, and the girl next to you is like, do you find her pretty? Do you find her attractive? Like, the guy is not gonna be as honest as he might be. Like in his head, he might be like, I really think
that's
she
what I'm
is.
saying. Like she might be an
But he's not
objectively
gonna-
pretty woman, but you shouldn't feel attracted to her.
But
I think
I think you can. I think you can.
that's
can.
so normal.
I think it's very normal.
That's what I'm saying. She could be, but I don't know. Maybe I'm different.
You
to
shouldn't do
guys.
something about it if you're in a relationship.
Should you communicate it or not?
But it's not something you have to. I don't think so. Like, there's some things that are just better left unsaid.
Have
I
you been in a
think.
relationship
But then
before? Have you been in a relationship?
before?
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
different. I'm more about like you marry someone that for life. I'm not into like dating and all that. I don't do things like that. So that's why I feel like.
I think.
Go on.
No, I just think like once you're in one, once you start dating and stuff, see if you still find other people attractive in general. Like even ask your parents, ask your dad. You're married to your mum, right? So ask him, do you find other women attractive? And obviously you kind of watch how he says it, but you know, you know that. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, there are
you know
other
that
pretty people.
because it's
No,
normal.
no one's saying. I'm not saying.
So
that.
you do
There are
find them
other
attractive.
People. There are
Yeah.
other attractive people.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be attracted to them.
Like,
If you're a Magna, yeah,
Okay, but
they'll
you can't
be an
help it. You
attractive
can't help
force.
it then.
Yeah,
Like,
you
as
can't
a-
help
as a-
who you're attracted to. You shouldn't do something about it. Like, if you see someone and they're your type, or like, do you know what I mean? You're gonna be like, oh, that's a good-looking
Yeah.
guy. Like, oh,
Yeah.
but you just take a step back.
You're
Don't
not
approach
telling
them.
me. Like, I'll actually ask my dad that. Like, if you
Yeah,
find me,
do it.
like,
I've done it.
if I'm sending snaps to the group chat about me being in Uganda after, you'll know why, and because that's you to blame, innit? But
Nah,
I'll ask him.
Even I've done it. I can't lie. I've just said, you know, is it normal? You know, because I was quite naive as well. I did think that as soon as I got into a relationship, you know, I thought that. Well, this is a while ago, but I thought that once I got into a relationship, you know, I'd find everyone unattractive as soon as I got into a relationship.
I can't
So
lie.
that
I
wasn't-
find
I'm
other
not
girls
saying
less
that. I'm not
attractive.
saying that.
Oh, you're saying you shouldn't find people attractive, but I'm saying the reality is everyone does.
Yeah, but-
Yeah, and I don't think you should
autonomy.
feel guilty about it, because then if you feel like you're doing something wrong when you're not, like that's just your human nature coming out. Like if there's an attractive person going by, of course you're gonna find them attractive, but you just need to have that composure and resistance to be like, no, like I'm not gonna do anything about
If
it
you're in
because
a
I have
committed
a yeah,
relationship,
exactly.
then
Obviously,
you
if you're in a
should-
relationship, you shouldn't do something about it.
There's one thing I'm curious about. Let's steer this over. Do you think males and females
Let's
can
not
be
do that.
platonic
Let's
friends?
come on.
No, I
Let's-
want to hear this.
Nah.
You can clear it if you want.
Nah.
What's
Do you
the
think do you think males and females can be purely platonic friends? And if so, yes. If not, like I ask this to everyone. Like
Okay.
it's
I'll probably
it's
have to
an
cut that out.
everlasting
I'll
debate.
probably have to cut out. So you speak as freely as you like, innit?
Right.
Why are you
No,
cutting
why would
this
you cut this out? It's a simple
I
question.
don't want to make it a
Do-
dating podcast, innit?
No, but it's just
No,
it's
but
a life
it's
conversation.
about men and
It's actually
women.
about life.
Nah, I
It's about
think
men
it's a
and women.
silly. I think it's a silly.
It's not relationship. It's not relationship. It's about. Isn't this about like can you be platonic friends as a
Yeah.
guy and a girl? I think there are cases for it. I think there are definitely a lot of cases for it working. But I think more time it doesn't really work. But I think you need to ask the question first of all. Like let's say you're dating a girl, and and she's got a lot of guy friends, and you ask her, if you let them have sex with you, right? If you let your male friends have sex with you, would they take it? You know, would they? Do you know what I'm saying? So, and then most of the time, girls when they never really think about it, right? But as soon as you ask them the question and they go, oh wait, maybe they would. You know, are they at that point? Are they really your friends? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but it's like at the same time, those guys would never do anything about it, and that's why they're just friends. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why the girls never think about it. So so you know, can they be platonic friends? Yes, but like what you calling it friendship in that case? It's like you're calling it friendship. You're calling yourselves friends, right? But deep down, if you really let them, if you knew those friends' true intentions, then are they really your friends
That's
at
the
that point?
testosterone you're talking about, though. Men and women are different.
Yeah.
A man would sort of jump at anything he took the opportunity to without thinking, and that's why they shouldn't be friends.
That's why you shouldn't be friends. Okay.
Yeah.
So you
That's
don't
okay.
think men and women can be friends?
Is it possible? Can any one of us in this room become a millionaire? Yeah, sure, why not? But what's likely? No, we'll all be on the regular 5-figure income with everyone else. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think
I don't think it's a very complicated situation.
yeah.
Is it plausible? Sure, it's plausible. Yeah, anything's plausible.
Okay.
But
But you're making it seem like a rare find.
Yeah, it's a pretty rare find.
No, I think what's rare is for there to be pure friendship. Like I think it's a spectrum. Like there's one spectrum where it's like husband and wife, like completely in love, and there's another spectrum where there's just no attraction on either side. And I think
that's what's rarer to find.
I think male and female friendships are all along that spectrum. So I don't. So if they're straight, if you have a straight male and a straight female, there's always gonna be a spectrum. Like I don't think it's ever like zero attraction, particularly from the man's side.
Yeah, I do think that, you know, it's hard to be platonic friends because I think even when guys, even when a girl's not the guy's type, right? Even if the guy's not attracted to her, if she just one day said, "Oh, come round one day one night she called him round or something. You know, like anything can kind of happen with a lot of guys. A lot of guys would just see that and just take it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like so and that's a lot of guys. A lot of guys would, you know, like even girls lower the standards, but even a lot of guys I find would still fuck with some girl that they don't even find attractive. Do you know what I'm saying? So it is quite hard to find those rare friendships where it's platonic, because a guy would want to fuck a girl that's not even their type, or not even, do you know what I'm saying, just one time, maybe because of the testosterone, like you said.
Yes.
But I do think there are cases for when platonic friends do work, and I think it only works when like the girl might not be the guy's type, and the guy has a girlfriend. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
the guy has a girl.
this girl, this guy has a
It's a bit
girlfriend,
easier.
and this girl's not even his type anyway. So even if he didn't have the girlfriend, he wouldn't even be there anyway. I think that
Yeah.
would work, right? But
In rare cases.
in rare
The majority
cases.
of cases, like what I find funny is like when a girl's like, oh yeah, he's my bestie, he's my this, like all of those besties, like they're just, I feel like they're
Waiting for the...
they're in them some sort of queue, there like some sort of, and you know, especially when that bestie will do favors as well.